Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to have a great time. I can promise you that. We got so much to cover. When I come back, a little bit of analysis of the Ontario provincial election, then we'll get into politicians acting very badly. Politicians gone wild. We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station and subscribe if you haven't. Resubscribe if you must. Sometimes YouTube likes to unsubscribe people. Happens all the time. And we appreciate your support in any way you can offer it. And that means subscribing in big ways and share this broadcast with your friends and family, because we're not sure a lot of this information about Mark Carney, where we're going again today. And I have pledged to get the information out there about Mark Carney as fast and as soon as possible, because this guy could potentially be Canada's next prime minister within a week and a half. And that worries me. Back to what? It's the last day of February, isn't it? We're looking at 10 days from now. Mark Carney is probably going to be anointed as Canada's next prime minister. Now, I want to get right to this incredible scene. And I have Chris Dacey, the guy who filmed this and who has been the butt of, shall we say, Charlie Angus's animus. It's incredible. He is the things Charlie Angus is saying. And is this what you expect from a member of parliament, a senior member of parliament? Charlie Angus has been there, and he's the NDP member from Timmins, Ontario. And I remember sitting on the Heritage Committee with Charlie Angus many years ago when I worked on the Hill. I was working for a Conservative MP. Charlie Angus was sitting on the Heritage Committee. Relatively normal guy in those days. Something has happened to Charlie Angus, and let's watch what happened yesterday in front of the Russian embassy in Ottawa. This is crazy.
Just Mr. Angus. How you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing? We got some questions.
We certainly do.
See you here. We're hoping to see some progress.
A little bit of a photo op here.
And we're hoping that we're going to see some peace forthwith.
Absolutely. As soon as Putin is put in jail as an international war criminal, we'll get all the peace you want.
We're not going to have peace until then?
What, you support war criminals? Go ahead.
I want the
support
war to
war
stop.
criminals. Yeah,
Is that
go
what
on.
you're saying?
Fuck off, Putin troll.
Dude,
Putin troll.
Nothing to do with Putin. I
Yes,
have
you
to do
do.
with...
If you don't stand with Ukraine, then you're a fascist.
Okay,
so don't waste
Do you
my
think
time
it's
talking.
Do you think
Right
it's
to the camera again.
Do you think it's fascistic to threaten to take away Canadian citizenship because you don't agree with their political leaning?
Yeah, I know you got.
Do you think that's appropriate?
Yeah. The
What-
convoy troll.
What about political violence, sir? You're a well-known supporter of Antifa. I have been the victim of
Yeah,
this.
you know Antifa?
Yes.
My uncles fought fascists all over Europe. They'd fight your fascists.
So you support the violent Antifa mobs in Ottawa. I have been the victim of violence from them. I was jumped.
Because you're a moron.
Because I'm a more. So you're saying I
You're a
deserve the
Putin
violence
troll.
from
No, I
Antifa?
think you're a
I was
Putin
jumped,
troll.
robbed, and beaten.
Ooh, you're a Putin troll.
I was jumped, robbed, and
Fuck
beaten in a
off,
park.
Putin troll. Fuck off,
Do you think
Putin
that's
troll.
appropriate
Fuck off,
comment?
Putin troll. Yeah, you stand outside the Russian embassy and
I
repeat
came here
Putin's talking
specifically to
points.
see you.
Fuck off,
I came
Putin
here
troll.
for you. You and your party, actually, Peter Julian called me an extremist in the House of Commons.
Yeah,
He
you
said
are.
my watermark is extremist without
You are an
evidence.
extremist.
How so? Can you provide any evidence
Yeah,
to
you're
that, sir?
standing outside here supporting Putin, you fucking
I came here to confront you on your terrible policy. I want to know why you think it's appropriate to strip citizens of citizenship.
All the money that we gave Ukraine, are there going to be assurances that we're going to get our money back too, or is that a grant?
get a job,
Was that a grant? I
Get a
retired when
job.
I was young. I made my
Putin
money before I
troll.
was 30. I don't need a job, okay?
You're a
My
Putin
job is
troll.
dealing with you.
Yeah, you're
What-
a
My job
you're
is
a
dealing with
fascist.
you.
You're
Are
a
we gonna get our money
fascist.
back?
You're a fascist.
So your answer is no. We're not getting our money back. Let me ask you this: do you support Ukraine going into NATO? What about NATO?
I support Ukraine.
You think they should be in NATO?
Ukraine.
I want to hear you say you think they should be in NATO.
Who supports Putin fascist? You're a Putin fascist.
Okay. If you don't agree with Charlie, you're a Putin fascist or you're a fascist. Now, I have Chris Dacey, not on the line, but just waiting to come in here. And thank you, Chris, for joining me this morning on such short notice. I should have called you last night about this, but I watched this video yesterday that you sent, to me and other folks, and I thought Charlie Angus has lost it again. And if you don't agree with Charlie Angus, you're a Putin troll, you're a fascist. It's funny because George Orwell said many, many years ago that fascism doesn't mean anything anymore except something unpleasant. But Charlie Angus loves to level that insult against everybody. Never mind the fact that he wants to pour billions of dollars into this black hole of Kiev. The war is over. One way or the other, the war is over, either because Russia has won or because we're having a peace settlement that Justin Trudeau has nothing to do with. And this war is over, but Charlie Angus wants to keep spending money on it, wants to keep sending military equipment we don't have to Ukraine. And if you disagree with him, my God, you're a troll and you're a fascist. And before we get your response to all this and what else Charlie Angus is saying, let's remember it's Charlie Angus who has introduced a private members bill, Bill C-372, an act respecting fossil fuel advertising that will make it illegal, criminally illegal, to advertise, promote, or in any way talk about fossil fuel industry as being a good thing for Canada. And unless you're condemning fossil fuels as being part of this catastrophic climate change agenda, you potentially could go to jail or get $100,000 fine. Now that to me is sounds very fascist. When bar people from freedom of speech, and Charlie Angus used to be a almost regular guy. I do remember him when I worked in the Hill when he was a lot younger. I don't know what's happened to him, but he talks crazy now. And just what are your feelings about this incident yesterday?
Yeah, it was definitely a wild scene. I haven't had much experience with Charlie like in the past, like you have. But as far as I've known, I know Charlie to be, I guess you would call him an extremist. He lost his mind basically immediately. I walked up respectfully to him. He announced that he was going to be there, so I wanted to go down and ask him about the Elon Musk issue, revoking citizenship. Wanted to ask him about his support for Antifa. And I walked up, as you can see clearly in the video, I walked up to him very respectfully, Mr. Angus, and we didn't even have a chance to say anything, really. Johnny even made the point that the war is that he wants the war to end, basically. And Charlie lost it immediately. He didn't listen to anything we had to say. He yelled and swore and screamed us down. His people surrounded us. The video, I would say, speaks for itself. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he's now doubled down or tripled down, and he's online lying about the entire interaction. So, this is just the way Charlie is, I suppose.
Well, how is he misrepresenting things online now?
Yeah, so he's posted there was a lot of people filming around. I posted basically our entire interaction from the start till he left. So there's a second part of that video if people want to look for it. It's on my X account at Chris Dacey. But he's basically saying that a mob of right-wing extremists. So I came down with me and Johnny Rowe, who you hear speaking to him, and two other friends. Nobody accosted anyone. In fact, I walked up right through that entire crowd with no issues. And Charlie was leaning on a pole with a bunch of photographers, getting some real nice shots of the embassy behind him, doing a photo op. There was no bad interaction. He basically said that we were a mob that came to attack him. He said that he chased us off when that's definitely a lie. He left while screaming fascist and the whole like. He's also come out and kind of started attacking Ottawa police, named one of the liaisons and speaking kind of poorly about them as well. So he's basically been lying the entire time on Blue Sky. It's quite interesting as well. Luc Lebrun of Press Progress is really amplifying Charlie's posts. So they're kind of working hand in hand. And then the Antifa networks that Charlie likes so much are in there. And, I mentioned in that video that I was the victim of a violent attack here in Ottawa. So in Confederation Park, I was jumped by 4 masked individuals, clobbered, smashed over the head, knocked to the ground, and I had my phone stolen. the phone that I was recording their protest with. I brought that up to Charlie, and he just basically victim blamed me. And these same radicals that attacked me, same type of people, are in his posts threatening me with violence now. There's been numerous threats of violence, all kinds of terrible things, and these people are amplifying and encouraging it. They're the same people that say that we're scared, we're the fascists, we're right wing extremists, that we're dangerous, all these things. It's all projection, and it's all exactly what they're doing.
And he's got the nerve to say to Johnny there, who I know quite well from events I've been at, to suggest he's not working. Right? And this is an MP who's not working. Maybe these people should go back to Parliament and do a good day's work, because they obviously have too much time on their hands if they're out there protesting in front of the Russian embassy and attacking journalists who are doing this. I got to commend you for being out there and doing that. I didn't see CBC anywhere. And certainly if they were there, they'd be applauding Charlie for doing such a wonderful job and supporting Antifa and all of this. But it really burns me up that Charlie Angus is one of the reasons Parliament was prorogued. He propped up the Liberal government. He propped up Trudeau for the last 3 years, along with Jagmeet Singh and the rest of the gang and the NDP. And now he's got all kinds of time in his hands. He doesn't even think Parliament should come back, because what for? As long as we got MPs on the street like this. But I really found this disgusting. You don't expect this kind of behavior from a member of Parliament. I guess that's what, and you say the video speaks for itself. Well, it does. But I've just got to say, despite that I don't expect a member of Parliament, even one I don't necessarily agree with. In fact, I can't think of a single thing I agree with Charlie Angus these days. And by the way, it just came to mind. Angus had the absolute gall to suggest, it was not such a bad thing that a woman died because she couldn't get an organ transplant because she was not vaccinated. I remember Charlie going on X and saying, "Oh, her own damn fault," and he was castigated by this, including by myself and others. That he took his X post down, because occasionally you can shame this man, but for him to attack journalists like this, or just anybody on the street, and talk like it's 2:00 in the morning at the local pub. Does this guy have a vocabulary that goes beyond F you, fascist? I find this incredible, because Charlie Angus really, I think, has proven it is time to retire. He's not running again. He's already said that. I think he should leave now, though. I think he should leave now, because this kind of behavior indicates there's something seriously wrong with Charlie Angus. And this is not the first time. He talks like this all the time on social media, and this is how he talks. In fact, Jagmeet Singh is just as bad. He threatens journalists too, and these people think they can get away with it because they're on the left.
Yeah, he's a radical extremist. The language and the behavior I see from him is the same behavior I see from radical extremists in the street. Right? It's this street level kind of, almost like it's ideologically motivated violent extremism is what it is. It's the same thing, this IMVE that they're always accusing right wingers of. They're all guilty of it. And, I've had lots of interactions with all kinds of politicians. Some of them are not necessarily the politest things, but I've never had a politician talk to me like that. They might ignore me. They might lie. They might say some kind of, they knock the convoy, this kind of stuff, but or question my journalism credibility, stuff like this. But, to act like basically an emotional, it's like it's so immature. It's not shocking, because I know who Charlie Angus is, but it should be shocking to everyone that sees it, that a member of Parliament would behave this way. And this is very much a theme with this party. It was Peter Julian, who's the House leader in the House of Commons, the NDP House leader, was on the record calling my watermark extremist, calling me alt-right, and insinuating all kinds of terrible things about me. He did that in the House of Commons, where he has privilege. I would probably recommend to Mr. Angus to be a little bit more careful about how he speaks about me in public. And I would appreciate it if the lies and the slander stopped.
Yeah, well, that's Charlie's forte now, is misrepresenting the facts, completely slandering and smearing journalists he doesn't agree with, people he doesn't agree with. I'm fed up with Charlie Angus, and I have been for quite some time. And his days are numbered. He's not coming back. But my God, we do need an election soon, and Charlie is further evidence of that. So I hope we get this parliament back soon. I hope we bring down this government soon, and we can get on with creating a new Canada, because this kind of behavior is just disgusting. So I guess final word to you, Chris, and thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me on. It's important that we show these politicians and the people that are in charge of our country for who they are. They spread all kinds of stuff. They have a massive amount of legacy media and the propaganda wing working for them. So coming on here and being able to spread this message a little farther is helpful, and I appreciate it on a personal level.
Okay, well, thanks again. Support Chris Dacey, support Dacey Media, and the people who are out there doing the footwork and doing the hard work in this inclement weather. Support what they're doing, because Charlie Angus needs to know his behavior is being noticed by Canadians, and it is being noticed. So we'll talk again soon, Chris. Keep up the good work. We love you here.
Yeah, thank you, Gacy.
Bye for now. That was Chris Dacey, Dacey Media. Fantastic citizen journalist. He's out there doing the work other people don't do or don't want to do. And I take my hat off to him. And I've met Chris on the street at the events that I've covered in the past. He's often there when nobody else is there. And the same with Johnny Rowe there. He's what I call a part of the Wellington Street irregulars. He's out there covering news, asking difficult questions that journalists don't want to, or so-called journalists don't want to. So we'll move on to Mark Carney right now, but I really wanted to get that perspective from Chris on the show. But Mark Carney is incredible, and I encourage you again, go to my Substack and look up the real Mark Carney deep dive. We are going after Mark Carney every day here on Stand on Guard. Why? Because the man has completely misrepresented himself, what he's about, his ideology. This man is a Marxist. He admires Lenin and Karl Marx. His whole life, all of his energies are devoted to net zero, which is a catastrophic environmental plan that means, as I had a guest on yesterday, the death knell of Canadian democracy, of Canada. It means we're striving for things that ultimately don't matter and that are corrosive and destructive to the economy. And I encourage you to watch the interview yesterday I did with Mike Lee, financial analyst out of Florida, talked about this, and he said every Canadian should be terrified that Mark Carney could be prime minister. This guy is very, very dangerous. Now, we'll get to this shareholder letter in a minute, but this is integral to what I'm trying to get across today in terms of Mark Carney and what he's been up to. But let's go to this video here first, and I think this puts it in perspective. Then we'll go to the slides, and we'll get into exactly what Mark Carney is lying about.
Last night, Mark Carney lied to Canadians. He lied to Canadians, saying that his company, Brookfield Asset Management, only moved their headquarters from Canada to Donald Trump's hometown of New York City after he had resigned from the board. Now, we all know that Brookfield made that announcement on October the 31st, proving that Mr. Carney was lying to Canadians. But this morning, we can share with you a letter signed by Mark Carney on December the 1st. Now, this is just days after Donald Trump had threatened Canada for the first time with unjustified tariffs. Now, this letter says that the decision by the board, of which Mark Carney at that time was chair, was unanimous to move the headquarters and Canadian jobs to Donald Trump's hometown of New York City. And the letter implores shareholders, urges them to support the move. Now, this is not surprising, but it is extraordinary to have Mark Carney stand before Canadians and in response to media questions to lie.
The decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board.
It's now more important than ever that he disclose all of his financial interests and conflicts of interest, knowing that he's been advising the Liberals and Justin Trudeau for 5 years and not having disclosed what his interests were to this point. It's imperative that it happens in case he becomes Prime Minister. And it's more important than ever now that he's demonstrably lied to Canadians. We know that we can't trust what Mark Carney says, and we now know that he will put profits for himself and for well-connected insiders on Bay Street and now on Wall Street ahead of Canadians. It's crystal clear. If Mark Carney wins, Canada loses.
You bet. Canada loses. Now, of course, we had a bit of a SHIT show yesterday with the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. And of course, I encourage you to continue to watch today as to what the heck is happening with those files. It looks, from what I understand, that there's a problem with the South Division of the New York South Division of the FBI, which is refusing to cooperate with the Justice Department of Donald Trump, with the FBI under the directorship of Kash Patel, under the Attorney General of Pam Bondi. There's a problem here. But what I want to know, in terms of what is relevant here for Canada, is Mark Carney there? Because there's Mark Carney living it up at his wife's farm in the UK, and she is a independently wealthy multimillionaire in her own right, just as Carney is a multimillionaire. Here they are at the UK farm, and who's that with them? Well, that's Ghislaine Maxwell. She's the one in prison for facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. She was convicted of that. Here she is with Mark Carney. There's lots of photographic evidence of this. Mark Carney was very close to Ghislaine Maxwell. How close was he to Jeffrey Epstein? I want to know. You need to know. Because this guy thinks he can just walk into the role, the job, the position of Prime Minister of Canada without being elected by anybody except Liberal Party members. And that's how he thinks it's going to work. Let's have a look at this Mark Carney deep dive here. Oh, that's not the one I was, sorry. I want to go through the Mark Carney Brookfield timeline here, and I'm sorry, I have to find this. I thought we had this. Here we go. Sorry for that delay there, folks. This is integral to what's going on. Carney and Brookfield timeline. September 4th, 2024, Carney announced as official chair of the Leaders Task Force on Economic Growth. So there he is, working with the Liberal Party. October 31st, 2024, Brookfield announces exit from Canada. Reported November 1st, 2024 in the Financial Post. December 1st, 2024, Mark Carney writes and sends letter to shareholders to support the move to New York. December 20th, 2024, Brookfield shareholder vote to leave while Carney in place as official economic advisor for Canada. He's working for the Trudeau government. January 16th, 2025, Carney announced Liberal leadership bid and steps down from Brookfield. February 25th, 2025, Carney lies and pretends he didn't move the headquarters out of Canada. Now, what does this strike you as a man who can't remember what he did or who's deliberately misrepresenting his part in all of this? And why would you think he would move Brookfield to the United States? Because if he initiates his carbon tax, his corporate carbon tax, his carbon tariff, if he initiates his net zero policies in Canada, we are going to see U.S. businesses leave Canada en masse, in droves. So he's protecting Brookfield from his own policies, which he knows are going to be catastrophic for businesses. And that's what's going on with Brookfield. What else is going on with Mark Carney? Well, incredible. Since Mark Carney behaving badly. Brookfield is in the middle of a legal case with the mayor of Lima, Peru. This is playing out in the state of New York. That Carney chaired the company that made massive profits off a toxic contract, but was plagued by bribes. And he is not referring to SNC-Lavalin, but it sure does sound like Carney and Trudeau are joined at the hip. So what am I talking about here? This is an incredible story. And let's go to the next slide here, because it just gets worse. Peruvian mayor issues warning about making Canada's MP. Mayor Lopez Alaga. I get my glasses here. Says based on Carney's actions when he was chairman of Brookfield Asset Management, there should be serious questions asked about Carney's character. In an interview from Lima, Aliaga said Brookfield, chaired by Carney, was making massive profits off a toxic contract, plagued by bribes. Canadians need to know the way Brookfield under Mr. Mark Carney operates here. They need to know how they obtain money from the suffering of poor people, Aliaga said. Now, what specifically, what's happening? What is Mark Carney up to? You won't believe this. But Brookfield is operating a toll bridge in one of the poorest sections of Lima, Peru. And they are charging the poorest residents of that city to cross the bridge. And reportedly, for the average person who has to pay the toll, it costs 1/3 of their monthly income. This is a guy who pretends to be, he really wants the economy to work for average people. This guy is absolutely nothing like what he pretends to be. And he will be a disaster for Canada. What else is Mark Carney up to? Well, here he is, climate boss Carney's firm linked to deforestation. This is from the BBC. UN climate envoy, which was his last job. He was the goodwill ambassador for the United Nations on climate change. And the former ex-Bank of England boss, Mark Carney, sold farms in Brazil linked to deforestation claims. So here's Mr. Environmental, Mr. Clean Energy, Mr. Net Zero, encouraging deforestation in Brazil, in the Amazon. That's what Mark Carney has also been up to. It just gets worse. Canadian giant Brookfield's Brazilian project is investigated for environmental violations. Brookfield is under multiple probes for violating environmental laws. If you can make a buck, Mark Carney says, make it. even if it goes against all of the rhetoric he has put out there publicly. All of the claims he says he stands by. This man is in it for himself and nobody else. He will make one of the worst prime ministers in the history of Canada. There's no question about that. What other politicians are behaving badly right now? Well, Karina Gould. You know how I really don't like Karina Gould. And you all know why. Because she was one of the Liberals, as House Leader, who invited a former member of the Waffen-SS to the House of Commons to sit in a place of honor in the visitors gallery. Yes, she was one of them who posed with a picture of Yaroslav Hunka. Before he spoke, she obviously knew who this man was.
And, I don't agree with everything that she has done, but she did really well defending Canada and protecting us when it came to Donald Trump the first time. We're going to need her expertise. And Canadians deserve transparency. They deserve accountability. And transparency and accountability when it comes to health outcomes, I would agree. Thank you so much. Merci tout le monde. Thank you.
You brought up Trump. Do you have anything to say about him pausing tariffs? A lot of Trump talk and very little substance talk at the debate. Tariffs have been paused for another month. What do you make of that? You only like to answer questions from the approved media? We have major crises going on in our country, and this Parliament building beside me has been closed for a long time. Canadians deserve to have their say. We deserve to have an election. We don't want an appointed Liberal elitist.
There will be an election sometime this year, so Canadians will definitely.
Sometime this year. Canadians have been waiting a long time.
All right, that's enough today. Let's go.
Is this not public property anymore? Or is this an accordant area?
It's okay, sir. Thank you.
Only the government-approved media is allowed up here, or is that the case? Only government-approved media allowed here?
You can talk to PPS media.
I've tried many times. They don't return my emails. I've also been arbitrarily banned from this building. I've tried to contact the sergeant at arms, but I can't get any information back. I've also contacted my member of parliament, Mona Fortier. She also refuses to return my emails. That's quite funny, sir, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny stuff. Who do I contact about any of this? I've tried the sergeant at arms and my MP. I guess I'll try again.
And that, of course, it was, again, an excellent example of the work of Chris Dacey, asking Karina Gould some uncomfortable questions, which she refused to answer. Someday we'll have an election here, she says. Even though she's saying it might be this year, could be this year, probably this year, but it sure won't be anytime soon. And that's what she's up to. Now, before we leave today, I want to talk about the Ontario provincial election. We'll watch a few, not much, a little bit of Doug Ford here.
A resolve. Thank you so much. Together we have made history. Together we have secured a strong, historic third majority mandate. A mandate to protect Ontario from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for being here, for sharing this incredible moment with me. To the thousands of volunteers right across this province who braved the cold, who knocked on over 2 million doors, tonight belongs to you. Thank you. I want to begin by thanking Carla and my daughter, Canada, the greatest country on earth. Democracy only works if people are willing to step up and step forward. Our province is stronger because of your decision to do so, so I want to thank all the candidates.
All right, and he went on a rant on Donald Trump. But I went to vote yesterday in my local constituency here. I was shocked that it wasn't like it always has been. I wasn't given a ballot, a simple piece of paper, and told, go into that voting booth and mark it with an X. No, I was given a folder, a huge cardboard folder with a ballot inside. And then I had to mark the ballot and put the ballot insert the ballot in the folder in such a way as the initials of the polling clerk could be seen, and then hand all of the folder off. And everybody received one of these folders. What a tremendous waste of paper. And why? Because they've moved from normal voting to this digital voting. And yes, it was Dominion. I'll say no more about Dominion except they've got some very bad media over the years, and they've been involved with elections around the world, and there have been many problems as a consequence of this kind of voting. We don't need this kind of voting. As we always said in the military, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's nothing wrong with getting a ballot, filling it out, stuffing it inside the ballot box yourself, or watching somebody do it in front of you. That kind of voting is not subject to corruption, not subject to misuse or abuse. It works. It's always worked. We don't need high-tech voting that can be abused. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to say how I voted yesterday, but I sure can't support left-wing parties in this province. And after Doug Ford supported the Emergencies Act to suppress the Freedom Convoy, I said, you are never going to get my support again, Doug Ford. And he never has. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching today, folks. Oh, just a minute. Please bear with me for a second. I'll be back with some concluding. Yes, please have a look at our store. I love the merchandise, and apparently a lot of you do too. Got some great episodes coming up in the next few days. And next week, I've got Neil Oliver on Monday. I will be talking to Christine Anderson on Tuesday. That interview might air Tuesday or Wednesday. This is the European member of the European Parliament who has been so outspoken in her defense of free speech and her attacks on Justin Trudeau. So don't miss that interview. I've been waiting to talk to Christine for a long time, and I'm very, very happy that this is finally coming to pass. So don't miss these shows next week. We try to give you more than just clips. We try to give you original content from newsmakers and people who are out there. That's my goal. I'm going to keep doing that, give you all the news you need to know, and help you and help me to resolve to resist. Let's have an election in Canada. Let that be the rallying call every day. That's what we need. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow. Same time. Same bat channel.